Adiyaman, Turkey, a rich confluence of history and vibrant culture. Nestled in the southeastern Anatolia region, Adiyaman and its district, Kata, have been cradles of civilization for millennia.
Mezopotamya'nın kuzey ucundayız. Kuzey Mezopotamya'dayız. Mezopotamya, Fırat ve Dicle nehirlerinin arasındaki bölgeyi ifade eden coğrafi ve tarihi bir tanım. Mezopotamya aynı zamanda tarihte herhangi bir ilkle başlayan bir cümle kuracaksak o ilklerin başladığı topraklar, ilk tarım burada yapılmış, ilk yazı burada kullanılmış, ilk buğday burada evcilleştirilmiş, incirler, fıstıklar, zeytinler bu coğrafyadan dünyaya yayılmış. Dolayısıyla dünya tarihi açısından her anlamda çok önemli topraklar.
These lands once bore witness to the flourishing Komangeni culture, an ancient kingdom formed in the mid-2nd century BC. The Komangenis, blending Persian, Greek, and indigenous Anatolian traditions, forged a unique identity that's still palpable today.
Bu etkinlik bir vasiyet üzerine yapıldı. Vasiyet de Kral Antiochus'un vasiyetiydi. Kral Antiochus öldükten sonra her yıl kendisi onuruna sanatçıların, şeflerin çağrıldığı törenlerin, şenliklerin yapılmasını salık vermiş ve her yıl bir döneme kadar bu şenlikler devam etmiş ve durmuş. Biz tekrardan Antiochus'un vasiyetini yerine getirerekten bu şölenleri bu kadim uygarlık topraklarında hayata geçirdik.
Adiyaman, like in many other cities in the region, have hosted different ethnic groups, different language groups, different religious groups. You see Kurds, you see Arabs, you see Armenians, you see, Turks, you see Yuruks and nomads, and, there are all kinds of different, ethnic groups that have been present in the region, if not now, in the past, right? So you basically see their reflections, their signs, either in overt manners or in disguised manners in its tradition.
Their most iconic legacy, the Nemrut Dag, stands testament to their grandeur, featuring colossal statues of gods and kings that gaze upon the lands below. This rich tapestry of history not only defines the cultural heritage of Adiyaman, but also underscores the region's significance in the legacy of human civilization. But amidst its architectural wonders and age-old tradition lies a modern pursuit, reimagining social and environmental sustainability and economic sustenance after a natural disaster. Buildings crumbled, roads fractured, and entire neighbourhoods were left in ruins. It was a stark reminder of nature's unpredictable power and the importance of resilient food and supply systems.
Bölgemiz depremden etkilenen en önemli merkezlerden birisi. Geniş coğrafyayı etkileyen bir deprem oldu ve deprem anından sonra hemen hemen insanların yaşamsal en temel ihtiyaçlarını dahi gideremediği bir dönemi yaşadık burada. Tabii süreç içerisinde bu eski standartlarımıza yeni kavuşmaya başladığımız bir dönemdeyiz. İçilebilir suyun dahi olmadığı günleri gördüğümüz zamanları geçirdik. Tabii ki diğer bütün yaşam standartlarımızı belli ölçüde kaybetmiş olduk. Ancak yaptığımız programlar olsun ya da devletin vatandaşlar için yapacağı evler olsun, vatandaşlar için gene yaptığı diğer hizmetler olsun. Hepsi vatandaşlarımızın eski standartlarına kavuşması için önemli hizmetler. Ve bu deprem etkileri önümüzdeki birkaç sene sürecek. Ölenler zaten bir daha geri gelmeyecek. Ancak yaşayan insanların dediğim gibi eski standartlarına kavuşması için her alanda mücadele etmemiz gerekiyor.
For Adiyaman, sustenance goes beyond the soil. While the aftershocks of the recent earthquake linger, this rugged agricultural land sees in its rich gastronomic heritage not just a link to its storied past, but a bridge to economic recovery, offering the promise of renewed prominence through culinary tourism.
Bölgemizin dediğim gibi insanlığın doğuş coğrafyası olduğunu biliyoruz aslında. Ve gastronominin, tarımın gene bu bölgeden çıkmış olduğunu varsayarsak bu bölge için korunması gereken en nadide konulardan birisi. Ve hala keşfedilmeyen bir sürü gastronomi başlığı altında ürünlerimiz ve çeşitliliğimiz var. Bunları bölgemizin tanıtımı için en önemli tanıtım unsurlarından biri olarak görüyoruz. Bölgemizin iklim çeşitliliğinden dolayı birbirinden farklı bir sürü ürünü var. Bunların belki de birçoğunu bilmiyoruz. Zaman içerisinde bunun farkındalığını arttırarak diğer tüm ulaşmamız gereken ve farkında olmamız gereken ürünlerimizi de böylelikle ortaya çıkarabileceğiz. Bugün burada şeflerimizin birçoğunun belki de ilk defa gördüğü belli ürünler keşfedildi. Nasıl ki dünyanın öteki tarafından gelen şefler ilk defa bir ürünü görüyorsa, bizim buradaki şeflerimiz de dünya algısı olmuş olan başka şeflerden başka şeyler öğreneceklerdir. Ve dolayısıyla etkileşimin, iletişimin zenginliğinden ve bölgemizin yerel zenginliklerinden çokça yararlanmış olacağız ve geleceğe dair de daha fazla umut besleyeceğiz. Bahsettiğimiz konu böylelikle gerçek zenginliğinde olması gereken hakkını bulacaktır.
Journalists, chefs, and academics met in Adiyaman in August 2023 to formulate new manners in which the intersection between food and sustainability can leverage the region's culinary heritage to secure a more sustainable future.
Well, the Nemrut mountain culinary gatherings on the issue of sustainability, especially at a time when the region had an awful earthquake of historical proportions. And this year especially, the gatherings brought together a wide range of chefs, food activists, food anthropologists, and also food writers, where we start to think about the importance of sustainability, food sustainability, economic sustainability. So it's very much important and vital for this region. So global issues of sustainability, but in the context of this place's a terrible disaster, earthquake. And in that way, how we can build a future that is resilient in food, resilient in economy, but also resilient communities and societies.
To truly realise this vision, we must immerse ourselves in the rich tapestry of Adiyaman's culture and the bountiful fruits of its land. It's about uncovering and celebrating the unique culinary traditions and diverse agricultural produce that form the bedrock of the region's gastronomic identity. This exploration is key to unlocking the full spectrum of Adiyaman's ecological and cultural potential, transforming them into sustainable treasures.
Adiyaman is located in the southeastern part of Turkey, and this city in that sense is reflecting many of the features of the culinary cultures of the region in general. The spicy foods are very popular here, the meat dishes are very popular, the kebabs again are very, very popular, and There are sweet dishes like baklavas and kadayıfs and, different kinds of halwa. Again, something you would see in many other places in the region. And in Adiyaman, they are also very, very popular. So it is, in that sense, it reflects the culinary riches of the region in a considerable manner.
In Adiyaman, food isn't just about nourishment. Communal agriculture, meals, and cooking are all building blocks of community and preserving culinary traditions for generations to come.
Cultural intersections have contributed to cuisine completely. It's not a question of how or if, it is how food has evolved over time. The more you study food traditions, the more you realize that every tradition is interlinked with another tradition. They don't exist in isolation. And for a culture to evolve, it needs to be permeable and to allow contamination. I think traditions that have failed to change have not stood the test of time, and you can see them perishing over time. I think the relevance of a food culture is very much in its flexibility in the way it adapts all the time. You see in the region we're in right now, a substantial amount of the products that we consume on a day-to-day basis have products that are not native to this place, but that have been magically and beautifully adapted to the traditions of this place. Tomatoes, for example, or peppers, or eggplants, or cucumbers, these are very much not endemic to this part of the world, but they have been brought over time and generation. Actually, the beauty of this place specifically is that it was such a hybrid thoroughfare of information and ingredient coming over and through it all the time, right?
Beyond the boundaries of Adiyaman stands a plethora of sustainable ancient traditions. Often manifesting in culinary practices and cultural gatherings, these traditions offer a window into a rich heritage of ecological mindfulness.
Yeah, so I would think, sustainability in the Balkans is really related to the nature. I think we are still quite connected to the natural cycle of each season. Again, when we talk about sustainability, it's not inventing things. It's going back to things that worked and for a reason. So I think for us, there's still a lot of people practicing fishing, for example. All the women pickle things, so you have vegetables for the winter, right? Why was that done before? Because there were no fridges. So again, it really is about the people. I think we have to remember what sustainability means.
There's definitely room for public institutions, private institutions, food companies and governments to invest in research and development, to identify the sustainability practices that traditional societies have been using for over many years, going back generations. So why are we not sort of using those practices? Or when we talk about sustainability, recycling, they have modern connotation. But when we look at most traditional societies, the way they produce, the way they preserve food, for scarcity reasons, that they have to preserve food so it's not wasted. And then traditional societies have these practices and knowledges, which then involves anthropologists, food anthropologists, sociologists. But the current debate on sustainability and ESG tend to be driven by people who do not have background or companies who do not employ food anthropologists or sociologists. But we definitely should invest more in research and development to use these traditional practices of sustainability and how we can expand them, scale them, use them, and make people aware of those practices that have been successful for a very long period of time.
The food industry, especially chefs, play a pivotal role in this narrative. They are the custodians of culinary heritage, entrusted with the task of preserving traditional flavours whilst innovatively adapting them for the future.
chefs can create interest in traditional products by, I think, adapting traditional products to present day reality. There is this incredible interest in preserving tradition, but I think if we're not careful, tradition turns into heritage, and heritage is very much a museum fixture. It deserves to be protected and understood and studied, but it might not have the same relevance that tradition has.
I think starting with our practice where we step into other cultures, the difference in creating a mentality for other chefs and the people around us to learn rather than exploit, it starts with breaking down the label that you are a chef or that there's a motivation or something subjective that you're searching for when you're going to these places. There's a degree of ego that I think is fine for the kitchen, but there's also a lot of ego that you do need to let go of when you're stepping into a stranger's home, you're learning about a new culture. You can compare your lifestyle or your perspective and your values because people have habituated around their own set of rules. People have constructed their civilizations and their cultures in emphatic ways that work for the place that they're at, for the ingredients they're exposed to, for the language that they speak, the culture that they have, the rules of society that they govern in. And for us, it's entirely objective, the perspective that we take when we walk into these very foreign places. And for me, I'm there to learn not how to be a better chef. I'm there to learn how to be a better human.
When we travel and we interact with these cultures, they need a lot of resources to maintain what they're doing. The pineapple farmer needs resources to maintain their crop, to transform their crop, whether it be drying it, freeze drying it, to find different methods of sustaining themselves. There's a lot of ways we can give back. We can give back by sharing their voice, sharing their knowledge. If we go to a place and there's these recipes that they're practicing, we would acknowledge them in our magazine and in our journal, and hopefully bring awareness to these smaller communities, even if it means someone seeing it, someone caring, someone taking the time to actually go there again after us and meet with these people and see what they need and see how they can help them. Just letting the world know that these people exist, I think it's one way that we can give back. A lot of discussions we have are very huge. We think about sustainability as a huge, grand thing and influencing multiple countries and thousands of communities at the same time. But I think the conversation first has to go back to what are you doing in your own little world?
A timeless yet often overlooked approach to sustainable food practices is now gaining traction: the re-evaluation and creative use of food waste. This ancient concept, though long practiced, is only now starting to receive the widespread recognition it deserves. Revaluing food is one of Blanca Del Noval's key areas of research.
Well, maybe the origin of the fermentation is not very well known. It's supposed that some of them were used by chance, like you forgot something and suddenly it's fermented and you try if it's good and suddenly it was. And also in many occasions it was even tastier and healthier, and even for you. And also it became a way to preserve the food. And that's also the reason why they became so important. No, at the same time you were transforming some product, you were preserving them, and in, I would say, most of the cases, like lactic fermentation, for example, they were even better for your health.
Right now, there's a huge kombucha, kimchi fermentation hub kick in the States, so it's a perfect opportunity to share even more. How to pickle vegetables from Japan, how do people in Turkey pickle, how do people in China preserve. Once you know that the channel is open to the audience to transmit the information, I think it's up to us to just try to ride that wave and transmit that knowledge as much as possible.
However, Beyond revaluing food waste, in a world where we value some foods more than others based on their rarity or availability, we are incentivizing exogenous cropping and therefore the disappearance of endemic products and plant varieties.
Being from this region, it makes you aware of the way agriculture is changing, transforming. This is true for all over the world, but in Turkey, I always think things happen quite fast, but there's always an incentive, and that's always an economic incentive. Having a field to grow a certain, yield is something, and then having in a couple of years maybe an apartment block to be able to sell a certain number of apartments is maybe not comparable. So I think there's a lot of economic incentive in Turkey that makes the transformations go very easily, and also that the people adapt to these very quickly.
A great example of the way I think we should combine learning from the past and moving forward to the future is a project called A Land of Wheat that takes place in Israel since 2015. It's actually about search for the heirloom varieties of wheat that were almost on the verge of extinction. And we're trying to collect them, we're trying to bring them back to the land of Israel, we're trying to raise commercial quantities in order to cross them with modern varieties and to really affect the bread that we're going to eat in the future.
One thing that remains clear, it's a journey fueled by unity. As we delve into this gastronomic journey of sustainability, a pressing question emerges. What has driven us to this brink of unsustainability?
How did we come to believe that as people, we always need to be at a certain comfort level, and this is almost scientific, like the temperature in a room, it should be kept at a certain level, or all of these things. But at the same time, we have this anxiety over the idea of losing time, and most of the actions today that try to beat time, I think, bring a lot of unsustainable, I would say, moves into it. So this is true for agriculture, that you want the weeds to grow very quickly, or you need to get to some place very quickly. That's why you would maybe prefer to drive your car. So within all that, I think dimensions of comfort and time cutting are really some parameters that encourage a certain way of living.
As we strive for progress, it's crucial we pause and ponder the true costs of our modern conveniences.
I think humanity has been looking for comfort ever since it existed. If you go to the Taj Mahal, you're at a beautiful palace, and in front of this small covered courtyard, there'll be plants that drip water, because when the wind would come through, it will cool the entire space down. They were looking for an aircon solution 400 and some years ago. I think we've been looking for comfort regardless. I think the problem of mindless consumption, I guess, is a problem that is very much rooted in the current structure of our financial systems, and not necessarily in the pursuit for comfort. I think as long as we don't know who we are and how long we've been here and what we believe in and what our neighbors believe in, and for as long as those relationships are not mediated properly, there will be a certain level of inherent discomfort that can only be suppressed by overconsumption. And so I think it's a deeper, more human question.
Turning now to the culinary world, chefs hold a unique position at the crossroads of culture, cuisine, and conservation.
I think the chef's responsibility is to direct culture, the nature of how we do things in and of themselves, from the breakfast you throw together, from the way that you do your shopping, from the way that you put your ingredients away. Our culture informs not just so much about who we are and where we come from, but it's the dialect that we use to interact with the things around us in the natural world, and also the way that we influence and inform the people around us to interact with us as well. And as a chef, we find a responsibility in informing this culture, informing these values of sustainability through every gesture that we create. If we're wasteful at the restaurant, if we're wasteful in our gestures of cooking and sharing food, we're naturally creating those same impressions for the people that we're pretty much responsible for the philosophies that they come to our table, picking up and then taking back with them.
I think the role of chefs in the road to net zero is crucial. It's very much pivotal. Chefs are catalysts, I think, for change in the food industry. We innovate, we show the way as to how we can manipulate product in a positive way, use waste in creative and meaningful ways. We can't do it alone. We need help from obviously all stakeholders, from producers to big business and consumers. But ultimately, I think things that happen in a microcosm of a small kitchen can have an impact in ways that are super large. And we're starting to see that more and more these days. Also, chefs cultivate habits, right? And depending on particular trends, these habits can have a very meaningful impact and promote change in a positive way. And so the things that we decide to cook for people have the potential to, in scale, really affect the way the planet works.
Chefs have the power to not only create delectable dishes, but also be pioneers in sustainability, integrating eco-conscious practices and sparking crucial conversations around our dinner tables.
We practice this in our everyday, including my partner Aryan, who we collaborate with, and Moosh in our studio, where we came from a deeply rooted culture, a heritage from Iran that taught us that the communal dinner table is always a better place. And so in any given night of the week, we're prepared to invite friends over to our dinner table to share a meal, to show the different ingredients that we picked up from the farmer's market, to help them translate gestures that have the capacity of feeding 10 people that show up for dinner.
But just like consumers and chefs bear responsibility in sustainability, companies and institutions are key in driving impactful and lasting sustainability changes.
Moving forward a sustainable agenda has a bunch of aspects that apply directly to food and food systems. And I think that people take food for granted because it's just there, it's just available. We need it to sustain ourselves, we need it to live. But what they forget is that it's vital, it's essential, it's actually the foundation of our humanity, really. I work with people who are the arbiters of the food system, right? They are the people that make the food, produce the food, cook the food. And so they're foundational in terms of moving forward a sustainability agenda because it's what they do. And we have to look at that because, part of the USG actually talks about food security as a huge component. And one of those things is, how do we feed an ever-increasing population? How do we make sure that people aren't starving? And it's a very, very good question. But unfortunately, I think it's misplaced in so many ways because we're not looking at supporting the people who actually produce the food. What we're looking at is continuing to fuel an industrialized system, which is actually mostly not about feeding people at all. It's actually about commodification of food. It's about producing agricultural products that don't become food. They become plastic, they become fuel. And so I think, it's a really complicated question. And I think that we need to look at, again, back to the source and look at communities and how did they sustain themselves? And how do we as food service providers and food service leaders that work in this sector, how do we help advocate for these individuals, for these farmers that are actually, doing the work on the ground because we need them there.
Harmonizing these viewpoints can forge a path to real, impactful change.
I think some of the responsibilities that chef and food businesses need to look into start with looking back into their history as much as they're trying to innovate and go forward. Thinking about that philosophy at every level, not just from what ends up at a restaurant, but from what happens at enterprise, the decisions that happen at a corporate level. And I don't really see a sustainable future without having a massive global conversation. There's a lot of particular education that you find in certain places that can be translated in practice to agriculture on the other side of the world. I think the chef's job innately is to inform people of what that responsibility looks like and what is worth re-celebrating and re-sharing and carrying on into the future for everyone.
However, as a society, it is important to join the conversation to identify and lift barriers that can lead to the adoption of sustainable practices.
The entire ESG purpose is valid, but we run the risk of companies appropriating that for profit. And so we have to be very careful in the way that we implement it. I think when we look at the human quotient for a restaurant and ESG targets and sustainable practices, the main focus should be in somewhat alleviating the pressure of day-to-day life for the people that work at an industry that's so much physical, right? So intense. And so having practices that take care of a person's body, and so things like a yoga or a simple stretching exercise might sound nutty, but actually has an impact in productivity and staff well-being and their health. If we focus on people, I think everything else takes care of itself.
I think the biggest barrier to making change in the food system is knowledge. And I think I say knowledge because it's a very complex system, and I don't think it's black and white. I think that a lot of times people try to pit the industrial system against the organic system, and that's too simplistic, because in between, there's a lot of good people doing good work, potentially doing the conversion from one side to the other. But in between, they're not necessarily always getting the support or the acknowledgement. And that's really challenging. I think we need less judgment. I think we need more knowledge. And I think we have to help each other come to a place of conversion and acceptance and have more dialogue around how we strengthen our food system.
I mean, sustainability issue is not something environmental only, right? It's much more than that. There are social issues, there are economical issues, there are even cultural issues that you need to take into account in order to make sustainability concept work. We need to take sustainability in its broader meaning, right? Otherwise, focusing only on environmental issues does not really take us to a meaningful direction.
I think there could be a stronger relationship between chefs and restaurants and ESG targets and implementation of good practice and good policies. And there are some interesting platforms coming out there that try to incorporate these targets into a ranking system or a grading system for particular restaurants. I still believe that it's very easy to fall into a systemic trap almost that might not be as relevant for the operation of a small restaurant in comparison to a large-scale food production facility. And all of those will have very different realities that will need to be contended with. But I think it's a good beginning. It's a complex question that really cannot just be formulaic. Here, there's a list, let's follow this together and everything's going to be okay. I think people have to relook at how restaurants are built to begin with, not just the FIFO and the food safety element of it, but can the restaurant be built to be more sustainable from the ground up?
As we immerse ourselves in discussions of sustainability, a profound dichotomy emerges. How can we expect individuals, grappling daily just to meet their basic needs, to ponder the larger sustainability picture?
Adiyaman is comparatively a poor city, right? I mean, when you look at the Human Development Index, the figures, you're going to see that Adiyaman doesn't have a good record. And especially when it comes to, for example, gender inequality, it is one of the worst cases in Turkey. And again, here, migrant seasonal labor in agricultural sector, it's very big, right? You would see, hundreds and tens of thousands of people, including children, going to other regions of Turkey for seasonal work. which is also kind of a reflection of the high level of poverty and high level of unemployment in this region. So these are the major challenges in terms of sustainability of the existing communities here.
You know, how is the migrant population to get to a point of sustainability? It may be a level of sustainability that we can relate to, that we're seeking as well as them. I think we have to wait for that population to find safety, because our definition of sustainability is different. But I can tell you in the first few years or months, you don't think about these things. You think about finding shelter, you think about learning the language, you think about finding people that you can trust, right? So sustainability to them really means being accepted and being given work.
In a series of engaging community interactions, blending cooking and learning about the region's foods, a powerful realization surfaced. Central to this was the formation of cooperatives, empowering local producers to extend the reach of Adiyaman's products beyond its borders.
One of the most vulnerable, part of the population here, women, rural women, actually coming together and establishing cooperatives, right? This was a very kind of a positive development for sustainability purposes, I would say. Now this is a very big question, right? Whether these kinds of initiatives are going to continue or not. In order to have a better future in Adiyaman, right? For women, for other kinds of vulnerable communities, including kids, right? These kinds of initiatives, which are organized around solidarity economies, are very, very important, right? So we need to make sure that actually these kinds of initiatives survive. And in order to make sure that these kinds of initiatives survive, all kinds of institutions, including state institutions, including NGOs, including different kinds of solidarity economy, organizations, we all need to help. We all need to be present in this endeavor.
I think cooperatives can be amazing. I worked with a gentleman from Palestine a couple years ago on a virtual event that we did. And basically he had started a consortium of Palestinian olive growers and producers. And they couldn't get the market price they needed to actually afford the labor that went into the production. And so they just let them waste. Most of the waste in agricultural production happens in the field. And so if you have olive groves in developing countries that the olives aren't being picked, well, that's 100% waste. As opposed to what this gentleman did was actually work with a group of growers, and he built a product that was going to be directly sold into the market in the United States. Cooperatives need leadership, and you need someone who's willing to take the lead to organize. It's not an easy feat. Organizing groups of people is extraordinarily difficult. Organizing a group of growers is outrageously difficult. And so you need a strategy, and you need a strong vision of what that's going to look like and what it's going to be. The biggest challenge that he had was that most people globally don't know that Palestine is an olive-producing region, and all they think about when they think about Palestine is this war-torn place. But they forget there's hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people that live there, and they want to have a pride of place, and they want to have a pride of product, and they want to produce those products and just have them valued by the world.
From these discussions, the potential for gastronomic tourism also emerged, highlighting an opportunity to empower the women of Adiyaman, the bearers of culinary tradition, to lead in creating distinctive food tourism experiences. As our journey in Adiyaman concludes, a deeper understanding crystallizes. Sustainability transcends the off-cited narratives of merely saving the planet or combating global warming. At its heart, it's about forging sustainable communities. It's about ensuring every individual's basic needs are met, paving the way for self-sustenance. And while sustainability is about global futures, the immediate challenge of sustaining life itself reminds us that our conversations must be both global and deeply personal. Our collective endeavour must pivot from grand global gestures to intimate local actions, ensuring every person can not only survive, but thrive. As for Adiyaman, one thing remains clear. The road to strengthen a sustainable economy is a journey fueled by unity, determination, and an unwavering belief in a brighter tomorrow.